reading about this thing that says 68% of people have like some kind of condition where they feel uh like a vibrating in their pocket because of the vibrating that you get like if you put your phone on vibrate.
Hmm.
And it's like a real condition. So people are like, oh, and they feel like this sensation in their pocket. And it's like they're going and getting like diagnosed with this thing, and it's coming, and it's just because of like phones. And I'm just like, wow,
I
like all these new things that are coming out, it's like freaking crazy, man.
it's funny because like I swear like there's been times where I've felt my phone vibrate. And I'm the type of person like I can have my phone full vibrate and all that, and the thing will be ringing in my pocket, and I will have no idea that it is. And like there's times where I'll just be sitting there and I'll be around, and I'm like I swear I feel it vibrate. I'll pull it out and it doesn't. And I'm like, okay, it's the weirdest thing.
I was just wondering, like, you know, if they have that with like other things. 'Cause I remember reading a story. Well, no, I think I saw this on Real Sex, where they had that like insert for women where they put it, inside their vagina, and the man controls it. So imagine
Yeah.
if you use that too much, and then you have that same symptom for down there. That could mix you up. You're in a meeting, and all of a sudden, you're like, and you're like, oh wait, I don't have it in, and everyone's in the meeting's like, the hell's
The
going on
hell's
with
wrong
her?
with that?
Got to tease your man. You got to please your man.
Back with a new show deep in the basement. Professionalism turned off, screw the ad placement. Skit comedy trolling, plate full of dough. People get offended, you don't get the show.
Alright guys, we back with another show. Here with my man Randy. What's up?
What's up? What's up?
You know, another thing that wasn't on the list, but I just want to just cover it, man. This Pokemon Go is going crazy.
Dude, you read my mind. So when this shit launched, the fact that it took me a day and a half to actually just get into the servers showed like, okay, this is insane. Not only the fact were they not even doing like a full blown release, they were doing like delayed release, and they were having
Right.
problems. I'm like, come on, Nintendo, get your shit together. You should have known this was gonna happen. But after this, I'm like, this is Pokemon. There's gonna be a shit ton of people that are gonna sit there and play this. And I was like, dude, it's only a matter of time before we hear some like fucked up stories coming out from Pokemon Go. And
Oh,
sure enough, sure enough, what do I read about towards the end of last week? Kid playing Pokemon Go finds real dead body when looking for Pokemon.
well, yeah.
And I was like, damn, dude, it was only a matter of time before some crazy shit happened.
Well, see, that's the thing. Look, for those that don't know, like I'm in Miami, right? So, Miami is one of those cities where somebody can decide to either just be out there and explore, or you may not ever go to certain areas, man. Miami's one of those places where you're driving around. People aren't walking around. It's hot as hell. A lot of places there isn't sidewalks, right? It's not like other cities where you have paved sidewalks. You'll be walking and there'll be a sidewalk and there's just grass, and you don't want to be in the street. Cars aren't going to be like, hey, let me let this pedestrian walk across the street. They'll run your bitch ass over.
Yeah.
They don't give a fuck, and they'll just roll your ass into the Miami River. So, and there's areas like down by the art district and stuff like that where you'll be walking and you're like, ooh, look at this beautiful, pretty art. And next thing you know, you'll make the left turn and you in the ghetto. And look, there's a black man. You in the ghetto. This is a ghetto I ain't going into because they ain't respecting me. I'll be like, look, black card, and they'll stab me and take the black card. They don't care. So you'll be playing Pokemon Go. You'll be like, oh, look, Charizard. Bam! Look, take your car, fool. They take your. Guess what? You got a Pokemon. They got your iPhone, bitch. So
Okay.
look, you gotta be careful with that Pokemon Go. You see where it says be aware of your surroundings. Look. 1 minute you in the Grove, the next minute you in the hood, and they in your ass. So you
Yep.
better watch where you're going. I mean, people talking about, hey, I'm surprised I got more exercise than I have in the last 10 years. You're gonna get more bullets than you got in your entire life playing this game. So you
that's
better watch what
that's
you're
the thing
doing.
that, like you said, like down in Miami, and that's the crazy shit I remember about Miami is you have these like crazy ass like divides of beautiful Art Deco. Hey, there's multi-million-dollar homes, and you walk 2 fucking blocks, crack houses,
Yeah.
and it's like, and I'll never forget the day that Carl Homer from Red Eye was working at a place down in the design district in Miami. And he's like, hey, my work is doing this thing. We're getting together at a club right near where I work. So let's go. And I'm like, cool. And we're driving and we're going towards Miami Beach and we're on the fucking highway over town. And I'm like, where the fuck are we going? He's like, oh, it's a couple of exits more. I'm like, Carl, do you realize where the fuck we are? And he's like, what, are we in somewhere bad? Because he was like horrible. Like he didn't know, what was good, what was bad. I'm like, Carl, we're in a place that I wouldn't fucking drive through this place during the daytime with my fucking windows down, And he was like, really? I'm like, dude, you'll stop at a red light. They'll fucking take the tires off of the car before you even freaking get to a green light. I'm like, that's
For
how
real.
bad we are. But yeah, dude. And like, I've already seen it here in Boston where like some of my coworkers have taken fucking pictures of groups of kids of 6, 8, 10, and not even just kids, like adults just walking around like with their fucking phone. They're not even paying attention, like crossing the street without even looking, just
Yeah.
looking around with their fucking phone to see where the fuck they are. And it's like, God damn it, man.
Yeah, you gotta be careful because I mean, you know, Randy, the Grove. I mean, I remember going down to the Grove, and it's so funny because people be partying in the Grove, and it's seriously, it looks like a video game. Like, anyone out there play MMOs? You ever remember those open world MMOs where you'll be walking around and you're like, it's imagine putting a level 1 through 10 uh, uh, area next to a level 100 end game zone. That's what it's like in the Grove. Because you'll be
Yeah.
walking around and you're like, oh, look, a rat. And you kill a rat. And next thing you know, you walk and it's like, oh, shit, end game, boss. And you get one-shotted. That's what the Grove is like. Because you'll be like, ooh, party. You'll be drinking out of your big, drink. And you're like, next thing you know, you'll like blink twice. And then somebody be like, want to buy some crack? And then someone else is stabbing you and taking your wallet. You
Yeah.
took 2 steps. So
That's like, hold up, I'm gonna go take a piss real quick. You so drunk, you piss, you wake up. Well, how the fuck am I going? Like, the club was right here 2 seconds ago.
yeah, anyone Miami that they know about the Grove, man. 2 steps,
Oh, no.
you went from party to a really bad time. So you Pokemon Grove. I was just thinking, imagine if because these are using real maps. Imagine if they fuck with people. They put like Mewtwo. Oh, I don't know all the new Pokemon. So whatever is the hot Pokemon, imagine they put it like Liberty City. Opalaka, they put it like the best Pokemons in some fucked up areas and shit.
Be like, you want that epic Pokemon? You go take a bullet out your ass to get it.
You see kids on bikes because they make it. I was reading they make it so you can't use a car. Because it's like they have a speed limit, so you can't. It's like 12 miles. As I was reading on Reddit or something, you can't drive by it. You can't do it. So you see kids like creeping. It's like you see like a gang of kids like huddled together. We gotta get this Pokemon and shit.
Oh Lord, that's too funny.
Speaking of crazy shit, this story that I sent you, and you already read it. I think it was funny. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it was not only just because it was funny, but I remember at Alienware, one of the things that was funny is whenever we had on some of our shirts, especially when it was blue, we loved going to Best Buy back in the day. And this was like before it was really big to just go online. I mean, we were still going online. It wasn't like it was so long ago. But you would still go to Best Buy every once in a while and buy something, especially if you wanted a game. You might go there and buy a game and get it. And people would be like, oh, you work for Best Buy, because we'd wear like a blue shirt or something. And it did kind of look like the outfit. So this story basically is a man posing as an Apple store employee makes off with 19 phones. And it was kind of, in the story, it could talk about 2 different things. Like one was where he actually walked into like one of the headquarters. And he just like walked in and was able to get like boxes of phones, like nothing. I guess they just was like, oh, you must be one of us.
So,
and he just walked in and grabbed it.
Yeah, so the thing was, like, I read several articles that they wrote on it, and I work for the fruit stand, as they call it. And the thing about it is that the whole thing about it was a store in New York, so it was a super busy store. So these guys knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And B, the thing about it is they changed. If you go into an Apple store now, they changed the way that the uniform was. So before, it used to have the Apple logo, and it was a stitched apple in the center of the, kind of big in the center of your chest.
Mm.
Very, very difficult, to duplicate that onto another shirt, because the shirt also was a special type of shirt. So now the uniform is more of a t-shirt type material, and it's more like right over like the left breast, and it's almost like a laminated, almost like a regular t-shirt, like if you have writing like this type of stuff on it. So they were saying that it's much easier to kind of like duplicate the shirt and all that. So apparently what ended up happening was the guy basically made a dummy shirt, went into a very, very busy Apple store, and basically was walking through, just walked straight to the back where the back area was, and kind of like when people were like, "Oh, who are you? Oh, hey, I'm the new guy. It started blah blah blah," and they're, "Oh yeah, cool," blah, blah, and they were letting him through, type of thing. Apparently, I read in this one article, and he just basically went to this one area, grabbed the stuff, and then just walked out.
Damn.
So yeah, so it was like one of those things where, like, I've seen prank videos where they've sat there and went to wore a shirt just like an Apple employee, walked into an Apple store, or filming it, and like people are like, "Hey, can you tell me about the iPhone?" And like the dude's like, "Hey, you know what? Like, this thing's a piece of crap. You ought to get an Android. Seriously, it's garbage."
Yeah.
And blah, 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 you know. And it was like funny because like at first I was like, "How the hell did they pull this off?" And then like I'm looking at the store, I'm like, that looks like one of the really like crazy ass stores where it's just like there's so many people there, the employees would notice it, type of thing, you know. And I can believe that yeah, that's a possibility. Now, crazy enough for this dude to walk into the back and just grab a bunch of phones, it's like that's insane. That A, that happened, and B, somebody's ass lost their job
Yeah.
over that shit.
It's like, hey, is that
You
the new
know.
guy? Yeah, that's the new guy.
Yeah, so it's like one of those things that it was just like when I read that I was like, thank God, I'm like, that dude's got some freaking brass cojones to go walking into a store to even attempt that, you know, and actually pull it off, type of thing.
Yeah, I know, because you would just think that all it takes is one person to be like, wait a minute, are you sure you're supposed to be here, or like, what's your name again? And that's it. Like one itty bitty little bit of check, little bit of check, and that his whole thing probably would have fell apart, and
And
then
and that's the other thing is like he had to be one of those people where he was just like, dude, I'm committed to doing this and blah blah blah. Because like, you know, I've worked retail long enough that like when someone's trying to do some shit, they're gonna be kind of nervous, and the moment it looks like, oh, this shit's going south, they'll bail.
right.
Like this guy was like, fuck it, if they catch me, I'm going to jail. I don't give a shit. And he just tried to do it and actually pulled it off, you know? And that was the thing that it's like, this was a criminal that was like, fuck that, I ain't gonna be one of those dumbasses. I ain't gonna be nervous. I'm going in there and I'm fucking like, I'm gonna grab these phones and just walk the fuck out, and they're not gonna do anything.
And that many, it'd be different if maybe you went in there and you're like, oh, I need 2 boxes or something. You think that after you
Right.
get over a certain threshold, someone's like, wait a minute, this seems a little weird, right?
And that's the
19.
thing is, yeah, and that's the thing is like the only way that I can even figure something like that, like, having worked retail for so long, that would have happened is literally like there was nobody back there to kind of like double check. They literally walked into the back, there was nobody back there. He took the opportunity, grabbed it, just walked back out and gone.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I can even think of how that happened. Because when you look at it, like 19 phones, that's a lot of freaking phones to be carrying
Yeah.
around. Especially like the boxes are not tiny, they're kind of big. That would have been like a stack, kind of like, big
Yeah.
freaking stack of phones.
Yeah, like who was it? Jay-Z and his entourage came in.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is for him and his entourage. I gotta hook him up. So this is what these
And
for.
and that makes you wonder, is like, who knows what the fuck he said? Like, they're like, how come he's taking so many phones? Like, oh, some fucking rich dudes can buying him for a show. Because like I've seen weird shit where I know at one point there was like a company when the Apple Watch came out that they like bought literally all their high executives, bought them all edition watches. You're talking watches that cost 10 grand a piece, and they
Damn.
bought something like 10 of them. They returned 6 of them, but it's like it's like, dude, that's walking into a freaking store, buying freaking 60 grand in one shot, just like that. And it's like, phew, that's insane. You know?
I think that's that confidence you talk about. I think
Yeah.
that's that moment where when you walk in, you just say to yourself, "Look, I'm walking out with those 19 phones, and no one's gonna stop me." You gotta have that inner voice that tells you either push on through or are you gonna surrender. That's what happens.
And those are the type of fucking people like, fuck it. Like, the moment someone tries to stop it, they just, like, hunch down and take off towards the fucking door because they're like, fuck it.
Speaking of which, the whole surrender thing, man, I swear, it's starting to get to me. I've been playing more of League of Legends, and I'm really that surrender button's really getting on my nerves, man. I mean, it's one thing when you're just getting your ass beat, but I'm seeing people surrender more and more often off of just the slightest thing, man. Like you just get your ass flattened once. You get one team kill
Mm.
and you get that motherfucker just hit that surrender button as soon as they possibly can. And if the other people don't vote to surrender, they go AFK, they start feeding, they start crying. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, what is that person, do they have that little voice in them that's always telling them to surrender? Like what happens in real life? Like I'm just picturing that inner voice in them. Like what happens? Like they go up to a girl and they're like, "Hi, my name's Tim," and then the girl kind of like slightly looks away. Maybe an explosion happened in the corner, and she just looks away for a minute. He doesn't realize that, and he gets scared. And a little voice is like clicking the surrender button, surrender, 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 and then he like freaks out. He like freaks out, and he quits. Or later on in life, he goes up to his boss, and he's like, I'd like to get a raise, please. I really think I deserve it. And then the boss sneezes, and then he freaks out, and then his inner voice, surrender, surrender. I mean, is this the future of our kids coming up now? Is that they're gonna have that little inner surrender button that they keep clicking, like the same thing they're afraid to see the defeat at the end of the games? Like I've actually read about this where psychologists are studying that kids can't take seeing you lose, defeat, so they turn away or they walk away from the screen, and it actually hurts their psyche. What is wrong with you people? It's a game. You can't take losing. You're going to lose plenty times in life. Get used to losing in a game, children.
That's like, for me, playing League. So, like, I haven't played League in probably like a year and a half. But it's one of those things where I remember, like you said, is at least before it was like, oh, you'd have, top lane completely fed this one champ and this dude's fucking steamrolling everybody, which was funny because it actually happened where one match I played and I was top lane, and of all people I played, I was playing Trundle, and I was playing him more like aggressive attack instead of more tanky, and it was the first game I got a pentakill in as Trundle, which my friends to this day still like, I don't know how the fuck you did that. But it was because like I was outplaying the dude in top lane, and I was just steamrolling. And then the thing with League is it does have that thing where like once one lane starts snowballing out of control, it will get to a point where that one person can pretty much go wherever the fuck they want, at least before, and you can own the whole. Like you pretty much will go through. And at least before, if like I remember playing center lane, playing top lane, whatever, you die a couple times, you're a little bit outplayed. As long as you still kind of pay attention, you don't put yourself in harm's way, you kind of get a little bit more defensive, you keep making sure you're killing minions and all that, you can kind of come back a little bit, especially if you can at least have other members from your lane come and kind of push that guy back and help you kind of like catch back up to him.
Right.
But I have friends of mine that you're not the only one that they play, and they're saying like that community has gotten to the point where it's gotten so damn toxic that it's like you say, one lane just like dies twice, and they're like, "Fuck it, game's over." And it's like, dude, we're just getting into it. Like, you really can't tell. I mean, I haven't played. I know they've done a shit ton of changes, especially to how the jungle works and all that stuff. So I don't know how it is now and how bad it can get and all that. But I mean, I still watch like the pros play and all that, and it's like it doesn't seem like it's that meta part of it has changed all that much. But I've seen it now, like especially kind of like I've been playing way more Overwatch than anything, and it's like, dude, there is so funny kind of piggyback and go off the rails a bit. Like I've literally like so I still play with Carl and a bunch of our friends from high school, and they've dubbed me the name Rage Quit Randy because literally the last like couple of nights, I swear to God, like me and just like one or two of my friends we've been playing, and it is like we've literally gotten the dumbest players on our team, and we've literally been playing against a professional Korean team because they are steamrolling our asses
Oh.
through this match, and like to the point where I would get so pissed off. Fuck this, boop, and I drop out of like once we lose the first time, I'm like boop, gone, done. Because it's like it's one thing to play, and but at least we would finish the round. Like that was the one thing. Like I'd finish the round and be like, screw this crap, you know. But it's like it's funny because like I've only played a couple of matches in the competitive mode, and good Christ, A, there's some good freaking people that are playing in there, and B, there's some really dumb fucking people playing there too. And it's just so funny to see just the contrast of freaking black and white. When I mean black and white, I'm talking a team will steamroll you. You'll come out of your spawn dead. Come out of your spawn dead. And they're just moving along like nothing. And then it's just like, and then you got your team members that it's like, okay, I've said it one time, I've said it a million times. Overwatch is about two things. One, get on the objective. It's plain and simple. Two, if you're being countered, if they're playing a good counter to your hero and you keep dying and dying and dying, you need to change characters. You cannot stay the same. And
Yeah,
there's
don't bash your head against the wall.
Exactly. There's way too many freaking people that they're like, I'm being Soldier 76, and they play the whole fucking match Soldier 76 no matter how many times they die. And it's ridiculous. It's like, come on, dude. And it's funny because I noticed the difference. Like when you play with a group, you notice like you start getting counted and everybody right away, whoop, switch heroes. And then you start pushing back against them. And then they switch, and then they start pushing back against you. Oh, everybody switch again. Boop, start pushing back against them. It's like insane, dude.
Well, it's the difference between understanding the game mechanics, team mechanics, things like that, and then people are like, hey, I read how to play this one guy, and they told me how to build this one guy and play this one guy, and I didn't read anything else yet. So I'm pretty sure I can win with this one guy. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to just play this one guy.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like with League, it's a completely different thing because like you pick the one person, you're stuck with that person the whole match. And the thing about it is like where the learning comes in that is, oh, I want to learn what's the best build I can build for this guy. And it's trial and error. I mean, you look online and whatever, you find out what it is and you play. And that was to me why I liked ARAM above the regular one, because ARAM, you just, here you go, that's your freaking character and you play with them. And it was a really great way to learn how do I play with this character because of that. And it's funny because I don't think when you look at ARAM compared to the regular matches, I don't think you see as many surrenders in ARAM as you do in the regular game. Because if you look at it, like if you're playing as a character and you're sucking it up, my first train of thought is, oh, well, you know what? He's probably never played with this champ. He's learning how to play with him. Plain and simple. Granted, playing regular in League of Legends, you pick who you want to play beforehand. So it's one of those like that is not the time to go like, hey, I've never played as this one dude. I'm gonna go ahead and play as him. No, you go fucking play ARAM and hope you get the motherfucker, and then go.
Well, I hope that people will just. Well, I know it's not gonna change a damn thing, but
Oh, it's not. People are gonna stay the same.
I just need to get it. That's my own therapy. I
Yeah.
just need to get that out there. But
Although I will say this, if you have not had a chance to play the beta of Paragon, the new MMO that Epic Games is coming out with, pretty damn fun game. Like it's more Smite-ish, where it's like a third person behind the view of the of your character. So not isometric like it is with League, but very like really nice graphics. I mean, plays very well. I've had a blast playing it, so I would check that out. Also, Smite. Smite is a very fun game.
yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah. Ignacio has played that, said he enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So, in an effort to push out more video game related news and not just silliness, even though I enjoy the silliness more than anything, a couple of game notes go through. Now, Evolve, our friend Magnolia, loved playing that game. Back in the day, you paid, I think it was 60 originally when it came out.
Mhm.
Now it's free to play. Um, it was interesting because I never actually bought it, but I played it at my friend's house. I liked the idea of being able to pick the monster, and then you had the hunters, even though people would
Mhm.
always complain about the same thing, the team dynamic, not
Yeah.
knowing how to work as a team and things like that. It's interesting because at first, when I first looked at it, I was just reading about the troubled launch and then going free to play. And at first, I was just going to talk about how it's like, oh wow, another game going free to play and everything. But it's interesting because a follow up was how so many people started playing Evolve afterwards. And yeah, it could
Mhm.
just be because, oh, it's free now. But, a lot of people are giving it a look, and maybe it might turn into a little resurgence now that people can play it. I guess we still have to see. It just went free to play, but a lot of people are giving Evolve a look. So we'll see what happens.
I like now that you mentioned that. Like I saw a pretty good video that like IGN put out about Evolvo. They spoke with the dev, and they said like the biggest problem, like you said, they had a very troubled launch, and the biggest problem with Evolve that basically like you have to love gamers because we're the ones that like we're like kids. We won't freaking hold anything back. And when we give feedback as far as like this is what you guys need to change in your game, there's devs that they're like, oh, F you, it's my game, I'll put it however I want. And then there's people that they like literally like will read every piece of feedback and then they'll go through with a grain of salt and be like, okay, how can we make that better? And that was one of the big things that the developer said. They were like, the more we read feedback about it, the more we kind of looked at it, and that's when they realized like, yeah, we need to change a lot about this game. And biggest thing was a team dynamic because you had the trapper was a very, very, very vital role for the hunters
Yeah.
in the sense of like if you had a hunter that had his head up his ass, there was no way you guys were going to kill the monster. And that was a big thing because one of the biggest things that the hunter had was the bubble shield that would trap the monster in a spot and you guys could force a fight. Now they've actually changed it where the whole team can cast this bubble, but it has a team cooldown. So anybody can activate it, but it's on a linked cooldown for
Yeah,
everyone, a global cooldown. So it's really cool that they started doing things like that. And then the other big change that they did that a lot of people complained about is when you played as the monster, like when you started at level 1, like you only had a few powers and then you had to sit there run or start eating as much as you can so that you could get evolve and then start getting your more powers. Now they basically made it where they give you points to start and you have your abilities and you can put the points into those abilities. So what they do is all the monsters have 4 different abilities and they give you 4 points at the beginning. So like the devs are saying, like literally if you want from the beginning, you can put 1 point into all 4 of your powers and you have them all. Or you could sit there and put more points into one power that you really like and make it more powerful. So they really thought it out because they said, the more that they looked at the game, you had either these games that like dragged out like a bit more and all that, and it was a good fight, or you had these like really long games that never went anywhere because the monster just spent the whole freaking time just running away.
Yeah.
Or you had these matches where the monster would die like really right away because the hunters would trap him perfectly and then just bloop, break through him, and the monster was too weak to defend himself. Or you had these freaking matches, which I had been of, and it was one of those things that made me stop really wanting to play the game. Is where the freaking person playing the monster knew how to play the monster really well and just steamrolled your team the whole freaking match. And they would literally evolve in a matter of like 4 minutes into the match. Full evolution, and now as the hunters, you're freaking trying to take this huge freaking beast down, and it was hard. And I
Yeah.
think like, doing this change, like they're saying, like, hey, they've seen a resurgence of people coming back to the game that haven't played in a long time. And I mean, me being one of those people that I got the game, it's like, ah, crap. But they're basically giving anybody that bought the game, they're giving them like what they call like a founders pack, and they're getting like a whole bunch of exclusive skins and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You had some people saying, "Oh, this screws people that bought it," and things. I mean, that's always going to happen. I mean, they had the same thing when you had people talking about like Steam sales. People are like, "Oh, what happens? All these games get cheap." I mean, look, you kind of pay for being new. It's the same thing. Like if any game comes out early, and like you said, if you buy a founders pack early, and then something comes out later and they lower the price. There's been controversy with games like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen, and that when a game comes out. I mean, I remember with WildStar, it's like people were talking about when that came out. They're like, "Hey, I wonder if this will go free to play." People bought like founders packs and early things in that. So it's like, if you want to
Mm-hmm.
be new, if you want to be ahead of the game, if you want to commit to a game, I mean, even with Star Citizen, do you think that there's some people? I mean, look what happened with them separating the MMO from the FPS.
Yep.
Come on, guys, it's gaming. Have you not learned by now that there's going to be these kind of changes? But going
Yep.
back to Evolve, I mean, they also talked about the DLC. People were upset about that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that there are different ways that people can as far as the changing. Like when we talked with Hawken, look at the changes that they went through, switching companies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They went free to play, but look at a lot of people didn't come back to that. It had like a mini resurgence and then not, and then they ended up joining with a bunch of with another company that bought like all these games that were kind of failing. So at least it looks like Evolve might have a resurgence now, and we'll see if people stay. Hopefully.
I mean, if you look at it, it's one of those things. Like, look at that game that Square Enix was developing, Nosgoth, that was based on the Legacy of Kain universe,
Yeah.
and that thing was struggling for a real long time. And I remember they actually did a like you did paid a one time fee, and you basically unlocked all the classes and all the base weapons as long as they kept coming out with them. And I was like, that's a good idea. And it wasn't that like expensive or anything. I think it was like $20 or something like that, which wasn't bad. And you look at that game now, and it's done. It's canceled, and it was just because like they were hoping that was going to give a resurgence. It gave a little bit, and then it just died out because people kept complaining like, oh, the game's not balanced, and this and that, and blah blah blah. Um, and like you said, WildStar is another good example. Like I bought WildStar when it came out because I had heard, oh, it's from two of the main guys that did World of Warcraft, and that very much felt like a space version of World of Warcraft, of vanilla WoW. But you had the typical thing where you had a fuck ton of people play it at the first month because you got it for free, and then the real test was like how many people are going to resubscribe.
Yep.
And then you watch as their numbers just go from like up here to like down to the bottom, and then it's like, oh, not that many people were kept interest in it. And it's interesting to see like this. Like I would definitely want to reinstall it and just see what it's going to be like to play it, see if it's better than what it was. I have high hopes for it, and I'm hoping that it does get way better. But like you said, this is gaming. You never freaking know. It could be the same mess that it's been the whole time, and it's just now free.
Speaking of a franchise that knows how to hit up its player base, man, it's kind of like that girlfriend that knows if it puts on that certain dress and perfume that you're gonna go wild, man. Final Fantasy VII, man.
Mm-hmm.
I remember back in the day when they were talking about, oh yeah, we don't really feel that we're going to remake Final Fantasy VII. We don't really feel the need to do that. Yeah, right. Now Final Fantasy
Bullshit.
VII is out on Android. It's out on iOS, and yeah, people are going crazy. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, am I gonna get that for my phone? Am I gonna be at work playing this, playing with all my favorites? I mean, I wasn't quite a Final Fantasy VII junkie like some of the people. They like to make fun of it, but I did love that game. I can't front. I remember going to the store and buying it for my PlayStation, and I loved that game. Getting all the man, I remember trying really hard to beat like Ruby Weapon and Emerald Weapon and all that, and
Dude,
it's like,
those
oh my god,
fucking things. Oh my god.
I mean, damn man,
I'll never
getting all
forget
the
that shit.
ultimates,
Oh god. Getting the
Knights of the
black
Round.
Chocobo, yeah, getting the black Chocobo, all that crap.
Now, the funny thing is now I didn't get to see the update to see if this was fixed yet. But there's like a bug I guess on the iOS version where if you're trying to use like the vehicles, it crashes the game, so you have to
I
save a
haven't heard
lot.
that.
Yeah, there's like a bug on the iOS version, so I'm sure it's probably fixed because this was like 3 days ago when I read that. So I would
Hmm.
assume they're not going to keep something like that buggy.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah, Final Fantasy Sevens. That's the type of game like they could freaking sit there and not take cash money. They could say like, "Yes, you want this game? We're gonna take your firstborn," and fucking people will be start screwing just to have a baby, just to be like, "Here you go," and then get their Final Fantasy Seven because it was just like such an impactful game when it came out. Like that was, I mean, I loved Final Fantasy as a series. I loved Final Fantasy 2. I loved the original Final Fantasy on the Nintendo. For me, Final Fantasy 3 was probably one of the best like epitomes of like storytelling in that game until Final Fantasy 7 came out. And I mean, just playing through 7, like the story, the everything that it just like built up. And it was one of those games where I remember playing the crap out of it. And you like played it and it got to a good part in the story and you're like, holy crap. And then you kept playing it and then the story got even better. And you're like, holy crap. And then like you get to that point where like you think the story's gonna peak out and it just kept going and going and go and you're like, oh shit, oh my god, holy shit, what the fuck? And it was just like it hit you in every like type of emotional way. And then you got to that like last fight with Sephiroth, and it was just like, what the fuck did I just like experience? You know?
even the side stories were good, and a lot of times the
Yeah.
side stories are like meh, but even the
Yeah.
side stories were good. So it's like it's one of those games. I remember when the PSP came out, and they came out with their like little Final Fantasy Seven, whatever prequel, whatever thing, and you had Sephiroth and I forgot the other guy's name thing, and they were trying to sell that, and people were getting PSPs just to play that. And I was
Mhm.
like, wow, you guys are like doing every little thing just to try and like sell these PSPs, and I'm like, then finally they're like, okay, we're gonna come out with a remake, and I'm like, okay, guys, you know what you're doing. You know what you the
Mhm.
only Final Fantasy I didn't like is when after they came out with the MMO, then they came out with that like MMO like version for what was it, the PS3,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that version I hated, but
The MMO was pretty cool though. I have
yeah,
to
the
give it to
MMO was
them. That.
okay.
Yeah. The only other Final Fantasy that I really didn't get to play through a lot, and I really wish I did, was Final Fantasy 9 because they kind of went back to the old school way of Final Fantasy, and that's
Yeah.
one that like I had it and I started to play it, but then like I did the typical put it down and then freaking completely forgot about it. And then by the time I like saw it and all that, like my PlayStation didn't work, and I was like, "Fuck! I really wish I would have played it." But I hear supposedly they have a collection on, I think it's the 3DS, and it has like Final Fantasy 9. It has like 8 from Japan, and I think 7 from Japan, which is not the 7 that was here. It was like a
Oh
different
yeah.
one. So like when I heard that, I'm like, ooh, I may freaking spend money on getting a 3DS just to get that because I want to play. I want to play that and the other game that I really didn't get a chance to. I'm mistaken. The game I'm thinking of was Dragon Quest.
Oh
Um,
yes, another
they,
great
they
one.
they they came out with 7, 8, and 9 in a collection for the 3DS, and I remember Dragon Quest 8. I still have the freaking Prima guide. Was such a freaking good game, and I really didn't get that much into the game, and I was like, damn it, I should have really played that game.
Now, another game that is finally getting a release date, even though I've been playing it actually for years, is Starbound. Do you ever play that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh
The
man, I
2D
loved it.
version of StarCraft, or not StarCraft, Minecraft.
Man, I love that. For anyone that's never played that, if you ever played like Terraria, it's like one of these like games where it's you land on a planet and it's in space and you can build like anything. It is. It's kind of like the 2D Minecraft,
3D
and
Minecraft in space. That's all it
and
is.
you're building like I mean, you have these tools, you can build anything, and you find like all these ancient. Well, it's not ancient because it's in space, so it can be ancient. You can find these civilizations. You can find like apes. You can find bird people.
Get
Um,
like all those like rare like elements or undiscovered elements and stuff.
yeah, you could build like all types of crazy houses, buildings, your own. You know, there's like it's one of those computer generated worlds. So what happens is when you're flying around, you finally can get fuel for your spaceship, and you go and there's like all these crazy number of plants. I forgot how many they said there is. But even when you're like digging under the ground, like even that is generated. So it's like it's not going to be the same thing that someone else has. And what's great about it is you can have your own server. So you can either play on like the public server with other people. Now, keep in mind if you do that, then someone can come in and destroy your shit or steal your, but you can have private servers. So if you get a private server which has a monthly fee, but I heard it's not that bad. Like if you only want to have a couple of friends, it's not that expensive.
Yeah, I heard it's only like I think it's only like a couple bucks a month or something like that. If you
Yeah.
just want a small server.
Yeah, if it's a small server, like 2 or 3 people, I think it's really cheap, like
Yeah.
Netflix type cheap, like seven
Mhm.
bucks or something. And if you want a larger group of people, but you split amongst your friends or whatever. And what's cool is then it's really private. You don't have to worry about anyone messing with your stuff. But in future versions, they added more things like quests and things like that, and they improved it. So over time, the Chucklefish people made it much better, and you could pick it up. Like I think when I picked it up, I got it on Green Man Gaming or something like that for like $10 or
Mhm.
$12. And I mean, there was all types of specials and deals. I didn't see exactly how much it is now, but I don't even think it's more than $20 or something. And it's a really fun game if you like building things. 'Cause, I mean, there's so many things that you can get. You get the tool where you can go and you can pull artifacts from other places. You can buy things. You can just go around and kill things if you want. So I mean,
Mhm.
I really like the game. I think the makers came from Terraria. I mean, I think
I
that's what
think
I
so.
read.
Yeah.
I think it was like one or two of the guys were part of the Terraria crew, and then they created Starbound, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
I I think the thing that I cracked up at about that is when they finally like announced their release date. So many people were like, "That shit isn't released already,"
Yeah,
like
exactly.
because it's like been on the beta for so long. It
They're like
was just
release.
funny.
I thought this was like announcing like they're like closing or something, or
Yeah,
just part two.
it was like everyone's like, "Ain't that shit been out for a while now?"
No, but I mean, and it runs on old. I was playing at work. I remember I was working the
Oh
overnight
yeah.
shift, and I was like, man, this game plays on like some old crappy Dells that we have at work, and it's just great. I mean, it's one of those games that if you like that building, exploring. I mean, seriously, I was just digging underground, finding minerals, finding like you dig underground and you found like a old experimentation cube area, and they were like experimenting on humans, and you find out it's like apes were experimenting on humans, and you're like, what the
Yeah.
fuck? And it's like, oh, okay. Then you go deeper and you find like some like skeletons and stuff, and then you dig deeper and then you find like lava and all this stuff. And you're like, wow. You could go even deeper than that. You're like digging
Yeah.
for literally like half an hour into this one planet, and then you finally get in your ship and you fly out, and then you're like, and then you zoom out and you realize there's like hundreds of planets in this one area, and then you zoom out more and you realize you're still in this one little galaxy, and then there's like all these galaxies. So it's like, really, if you like that kind of stuff, seriously,
It's
check this game out.
it's an early poor man's version of No Man's Sky. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
Uh,
seriously.
which
Seriously.
which is funny because I would laugh my ass off if like the developer of No Man's Sky was like, yeah, I used to play this game and it kind of gave me an idea. Like that'd be freaking cool as hell, because that's a game that like seriously when that thing comes out, holy shit, there's gonna be people playing the fuck out of that game
Oh hell yeah.
because of just like when when he went in and described like just how this shit works, and he did it on the Stephen Colbert show, like dude, Stephen Colbert, who's a pretty smart guy, was just like, wait, how big is this thing? And
Yeah.
like the guy's like, yeah, it's as big as our own galaxy, and he's like, Jesus. Like he freaked out and told the guy like, you could literally play this thing until you die and you will not run into another player. You know, like that is insane.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, when I heard about like how many planets it is, how long it would take you to explore No Man's Sky, I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's like holy.
All right. So we went through more of those games, and now we swing back to I guess what we would call it is I guess Twitter outrage. Let's see if I can try not to butcher his name. Would it be Katsuhiro
Katsu-
Harada? Is that right?
Katsuhiro Harada. It
Harada.
was Harada.
Okay, from Tekken 7. All right, so we have Tekken 7, and they have the fighters, and some of them are sexy fighters. And it's funny because in one of the poses, and we have the picture, and it shows a nice bikini, and she's pretty, she's hot, and you guys are going to want to look, and you girls are going to want to look. And it's funny, so I guess someone asked about the picture or something. So I guess in one of his replies, I guess they were asking about the picture or something to effect like, will we see it or will it be up there or something like that. And his reply is basically like, ask your country's SJWs, which is for social justice warriors. And then he put like, ha ha ha. And I guess that was into the, will these costumes be in the Western version of Tekken 7 on consoles? And yeah, I guess after that it didn't go over too well because, man, I don't, here's the problem, guys. Here's the problem. So bringing this back to a Miami content. Okay, so Dwayne Wade, our guy in Miami Heat, went to Chicago Bulls. Okay, so what happens? Okay, this is what actually happened. Everyone, you have a camp that's kind of sad, and you have a camp that is like, oh, I understand it happened. But what you also have a camp that says, hey, I want to get on TV or I want to be put on the internet. So what do? They videotape themselves burning his jersey. So what does someone else who has a blog do? Say, hey, I want some free clicks. So what do? Miami Heat fans burn Dwayne Wade jersey. So what do people on the internet do? Hey, I want to make fun of Miami Heat fans. Miami fans burn jerseys because they're terrible Heat fans. What do people who want to hate on Miami Heat fans do? Miami fans are dumb and they burn Wade's jersey. Guess what? You feed stupid people. So that's kind of what's happening in these cases. So people come out the woodwork and say, oh, as a lifelong identifying female Tekken fan, this tweet makes me feel real sad. Come the fuck on, blah, blah, blah. Look, I understand that there are issues out there where people are actually being offended. I understand there's issues out there that actually are hurting people. But it's the internet. You will always find someone to be offended. You will always find a way to offend people. That does not mean that every time something is done, it's offensive.
Yep.
It's the internet.
It's
And unfortunately, that's just what happened to me. I mean, Randy, you agree with my sentiment?
No, it's so like you don't even have to go that far back. Okay, like look at what happened with Street Fighter Five. So Street Fighter Five, I can't remember what the name of the fighter is, but it's the girl that's like the wrestler. I think it's like the Mexican wrestler, the
Oh, no,
grapple wrestler,
the Brazilian
the
one, right?
Brazilian wrestler. Yes.
Yeah.
So I remember before the game came out, there was this big hoopla over this whole like, oh, that they're changing it to come over here to the United States and blah 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 blah. And literally what they changed, because I saw the video of her doing her super from the Japanese version and the super on the American version, is when she does her super in the Japanese version, she kind of like points out her target and slaps her ass, and then she does the move where she grabs the person and her partner and her come and they like smash their butt against or their butts against the person's like head or whatever, and then slam them down into the ground. Like they grab the person and do it. And in the American version, all she does is she kind of like points them out and does like her stern look, and then they do the same move. And it was just like I remember this huge fucking hoopla over because they're like, oh, that they're like, they're censoring the whole thing and blah 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 blah. Like it was that whole like, oh, where are the trolls at? Okay, let's sit there and start feeding them. Here you go, here you go. All right, yes. Oh, you've eaten enough. Oh, good. It was just this insane, crazy thing that people like, and like you said, I can understand people will get offended on certain things, but it's this whole like you say, you're gonna have the people on one side of the fence, the people on the other side of the fence, and it's like you could feel the tension in the air, and then somebody in the far back row is just gonna chuck a beer bottle, and it's gonna hit somebody on the other side of the fence, and then all hell's gonna break loose. And this is
Exactly.
basically what started to happen here, and it's like his comment was in such a way where like you can, like you said, it was in a sense of like, hey, don't ask me. I just like, I made the game, but I'm not the one that has the final decision. But the way that he kind of said it is, ha ha ha, here's food for the trolls, go to work.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing about it. And it's like there's a way to say it. Like he could have just sat there and come out and said, like, you know what? I just made the game. Like it's up to whoever makes these decisions that decides what's coming out. Boom, plain and simple. Argument would have ended there. I mean, it would have still probably started the whole argument over the internet type of thing, but he would have been like the guy of like, hey, you know what? Like, if it were up to me, well, I'd release it how it was released. And in looking at the photos, it's like you said, it's a good looking, like it's a sexy, blah 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 type of thing. The whole thing of having a woman portrayed and wearing a skimpy outfit and blah 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 has been around. Like if you sit there and you think about it, think of freaking Dead or Alive. That has
Yeah.
been around since way back when, you know. And I think one of the best things I ever saw where they kind of poked fun at that whole thing. I cannot remember for the life of me the freaking web comic that it was, but it was a web comic where there was this like barbarian in this like full armor, and then there was like a warrior woman wearing like the typical barbarian woman, which was like the bikini metal armor and all that, and she like goes to a blacksmith and she's like, what the hell is this? Like he's wearing a full body armor, this is what I'm wearing. How the hell is this going to protect me from anything? Like we
Yeah.
should be wearing the same thing. And literally the last frame is the barbarian guy wearing the bikini armor going like, dude, this is the best armor I've ever had anywhere. Like I feel like I can move all over the place. And it was just like so funny because it like poked fun at that whole stereotype, which is another huge thing that like it reaches out not only to video gaming, it reaches out to board gaming, it reaches out to any type of gaming and all that. It's that whole you cannot please all of the people all of the time. You can't. You're always gonna have some sort of critics. And that's the biggest thing. Is like I mean, I think one of my favorite things I've ever heard anybody say was one of the guys at Blizzard that worked for World of Warcraft, and he said, if you ever think that God has an easy job, try running a freaking MMO and pleasing everybody. You won't. It was literally his quote. And it was so funny because I started thinking, I'm like, yeah, no matter what, you're going to piss somebody off. And that's the way it is. It's like the way of the world. But it's like, it's so silly that we fight over these like these things like this, you know? And it's just funny to watch the whole like it's like, hey, here's the fight going over here and they're throwing a rock and there goes a freaking car and there goes this and it just gets so out of control.
And the thing is he stirred the pot. Like, first of all, he called out the social justice warriors. Like,
Oh yeah.
if you make a Twitter post and you type in SJW, you just summon them. That's like
Oh
saying
yeah.
Candyman in the ghetto.
Yeah.
Don't do that. You don't say Bloody Mary 5 times in the dark. You don't say Candyman in the hood, and you don't say social justice warriors on the internet. You will summon them. And then he had to go back later and then edit his tweet or delete his tweet, and it's like by then it's too late. You done summon them. You summoned the
said,
dog.
like we said the last time, once it's on the internet, it's on the internet. It's
Yeah,
not
man.
coming down.
You done fucked up. Today I fucked up by summoning them on the internet. Don't do it.
That dude just stood up on the highest mountain, pulled out the little horn that summons the SJWs, and just blew that shit as hard as he could, and then walked down the mountain and go, "Fuck, I shouldn't have done that shit."
Yeah, you done summoned the horde, fool. You done
Uh,
fucked up.
you done fucked up. It was at that moment that he realized he done fucked up.
All right, so our final piece of today, for today, is not actually. Well, I guess it's a story. I actually heard this on the Dan Lebitard's show, which is kind of local, but it's also national because it's on ESPN, and it's actually kind of where I got the name of the show from because he has a little saying where if you don't understand his show or pieces of his show, he says you don't get the show, and that's kind of what we do here because a lot of times, like people don't even get obsolete gamer, like they think that when our name obsolete gamer means that the game has to be obsolete and things like that's not what it means. And do you want to know what it means? Well, fuck you. I'm not gonna tell you what it means anymore because you should know by now. And if you don't know, too bad. Okay, so our final story is actually about this guy's roommate who he used to come home and they had a parrot, right? And this guy's had his roommate had a parrot, and he'd come home, and this parrot only make these sounds when it was just him and the other roommate was gone. So he'd come home and his parrot would be there and parrot just be making like these squawking sound like squawk squawk, and all of a sudden this parrot would start making these like sexual moaning sounds. I mean like I mean just think about this for a minute. Imagine you walk into your apartment and there's a parrot making regular parrot sounds, right? And every other time it makes parrot sounds. But then all of a sudden, like you come back, your roommate leaves, and then this parrot start making like sexual sounds. But it's making sexual sounds of like a girl and a guy too, like having sex. So I mean, that coming from a parrot just doesn't sound right. So the guy's like freaking out and is like, "What the hell's going on?" And after a while, he starts to put two and two together and starts to realize that what's happening is that his friend is having his like girlfriend come over and they're like doing it, and somehow the parrot is like picking up on it because that's how parrots like learn. Like when a parrot like says something like "Polly want a cracker," it's because you have to keep saying it over and over to the parrot. Like you have to keep going, "Polly want a cracker, Polly want a cracker, Polly want a cracker." So that's what kept happening. Like they keep so you want to know what's the worst thing about it? The parrot was in the other guy's room. So they kept having sex in the other guy's bed. So he goes up to the roommate. He's like, "What the fuck? Why are you having sex in his bed?" And apparently the guy had like one of those Tempur-Pedic beds, and you know she really liked having sex on his bed because he had a nicer bed, and the roommate had a really I guess a shitty bed, and the guy had a parrot. So there you go. He has a parrot that picks up sex sounds, and he had to live with the parrot just parroting back the sounds of his roommate having sex with his girlfriend who was having sex on his Tempur-Pedic bed. And I just thought that was pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. I was about to say that's kind of funny as shit. Having a parrot just be sitting there moaning.
I wish I had a recording of that though. That must be creepy because just any kind of sound of that would be weird, but I just couldn't imagine a parrot mimicking that. That must be disturbing.
You imagine him having company over and the parrot just start doing the noises and fucking company be like, "Who the fuck having sex in the back of your room?"
Or you bring a girl over, right? Like you finally get a girl in there, and you're like with her, and you're like looking at the parrot, and you're like, "Polly, don't you fucking do it!
Don't you
fucking do it!
I'm gonna cook your ass if you do it."
The parrot's like, "Oh yeah, oh you fucking Polly, shut up! You're fucking my game up, Polly."
Oh god, that'd be hilarious. be hilarious if it was not doing that, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're like, okay, ha, 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 the parrot's making a joke, and all of a sudden parrot just busts out like, stick it in my ass or something like that.
Now the parrot's like, yeah, Bill. All right. It's like, oh shit. All right, Rumi, what the fuck?
I was like, dang on, Ruby.
It's like, damn, it's Caligula up in here. Oh man. All right, so we're gonna be back with another show very soon. I'd like to thank Randy for coming on again.
Oh, no problem, man. Anytime. I'm always happy to come on, shoot the shit, and get a good laugh.
I also would like to send a special shout out to Superman for holding up the sun and keeping it from destroying us. Because I mean, he's been holding up that motherfucker. Look at him. He's holding it down. I mean, that thing has been trying to kill us the entire show. But he's been either that or he's going Super Saiyan. I'm not sure which one. But
I just realized now my freaking thing. Like my wife turned on the light in the hallway in the back, and it looks like I have like an angel's halo coming around from behind me. It's like she flicked the light on, and the angel just went. Oh.
We got some high production value going on here. That's what we do, baby.
That's right. The angels are singing.
All right, so we'll be back with another episode real soon. So I hope you liked it, but if you didn't, that's okay. But the problem is that if you got offended, then guess what? You didn't get the show. All right, we'll see you soon. Peace out.
Later.